Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation. Today we picked up a couple of important articles from the Hindu, the Indian Express and Deccan Herald newspaper, which are very significant from your KS examination point of view. Please do hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel and also share it with your fellow aspirants so that you get regular updates about the daily news analysis as well as other regular updates like the shorts, new initiatives hosted by Spardha Lines, so on and so forth. Before we start with our today's analysis for the day, we have two quick gentle reminders. The first is in reference to the KS prelims and the mains classes. These classes can be conducted on online as well as on the offline platforms. These are the features of the classroom program, that they will be teaching the best content by the best faculty who have renowned experience in understanding the KPSC trends, and these classes by the experts and highly qualified faculty will ensure that you would be able to clear this examination on the very first attempt. This will include free fortnight current affairs magazine for the prelims and the mains, and this will be in English and Kannada. For those of them who have opted for English, you would be able to select in English. For those who have picked up in Kannada, you would be able to listen to the Kannada audio and the video. This will include prelims and mains test series conducted fortnightly, special classes for communication and the answer writing skills, one-on-one feedback and mentorship sessions, daily current affairs tests as well as classes, complimentary access to Spardha Lines statewide monthly current affairs test, DSCRT and NCRT foundation classes with study material crafted by the experts and the course strategically designed by the Spardha Lines R&D team. That apart, we also have the DSERT and the NCRT foundation classes as well. These are conducted by the subject matter experts and highly qualified faculty. This will be on a live session, and we would also have the offline classroom program, recorded classes available as well, NCRT and DSCRT practice test, free current affairs magazine, English or in Kannada. So what are you waiting for? In the number given in the description box, kindly give them a call and ensure that you register as soon as possible so that you would be able to clear this examination in the very first attempt. Let's get started and look into the first article for the day. The first article reads, 7 Indians who faced death row in Qatar return home. What is this article speaking about? The article here is speaking about international relations perspective from India and Qatar viewpoint. This article primarily goes on to say that there were as many as 8 Indians. These were 8 Indians who were working in one of the companies based out of Qatar. This company that they were working for was basically engaged in shipbuilding, naval technology, so on and so forth. So these 8 people were imposed with death penalty by the trial court in Qatar. What was the allegation? We do not know, but many newspaper outlets also say that these people were involved in the espionage according to the preliminary analysis. What is this espionage charge? These were the people who were employed in naval technology, so they were building some of the ships as well as submarines as well. It is alleged and it is said that these people were involved in the espionage, which basically means they were giving out the information to Israel. And as a result, they were booked under the charges of espionage, and ultimately death penalty were imposed by one of the trial courts in Qatar. Immediately after this issue surfaced, what exactly happened? Everything was happening in such a way that India wanted to make sure that these people are lifted off. These people, whatever charges were put on them, were completely taken off, and ultimately they returned to India. So we could have voiced our opinion, but nothing of that sort was happening. But instead, legal options were explored by the government of India, by the Ministry of External Affairs, one part, and at the second time, we also have the diplomatic ongoing initiatives as well. So on one side, what we had was the legal initiatives that were taken up. This was happening parallelly. On the other side, diplomatic front opened up as well, and we also have the Minister of External Affairs who was directly involved in this particular case in order to ensure that these people are lifted of all the charges. So on one side, it then goes to the higher courts. The higher courts looks into this particular issue, and ultimately now, with the support of the diplomatic initiatives undertaken by the Modi government, what we have is about 7 individuals have come back to India. The 8th person is also released but awaits the clearance as well, and thanks to Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well as his counterpart who has been able to release these people in the issue of Qatar and India issue. So in this particular backdrop, we have to understand two things. One is the diplomacy that India has been able to run. When it comes to the West Asian relationship, what we have had is personal preferences over a period of time. This is on the personal level that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been able to connect with the leaders of Qatar as well as with West Asia. And when it comes to Qatar as well as West Asia, how do they operate? They operate basically in small channels, which basically means you will have is the president or the leader of that particular country who would be able to decide his personal rapport with another country's leader. Since Prime Minister Narendra Modi was able to have a personal connect with the Qatar leader, and that is also influenced this entire outcome. So this article primarily goes on to say that despite charges of espionage, we were able to influence a certain outcome. We were able to make sure that these former Navy personnel are released primarily because Prime Minister Narendra Modi had the personal connect with Qatar leader, and the Qatar leader was able to accept that, and ultimately these people are released and the former Navy personnel are coming back to New Delhi. This is the primary reason as to why they have been released. That apart, legal options were also explored. That apart, we also had the diplomatic initiatives that were taken by the Ministry of External Affairs. So the three initiatives: one, the personal connect of Prime Minister Narendra Modi; second happens to be the legal initiatives; third happened to be the diplomatic initiatives that have been taken by the Ministry of External Affairs. All this culminated together. What we have is the release of these former Navy personnel, and that is why we have to appreciate and we also have to thank Prime Minister Narendra Modi and their government for this entire issue and the debacle. This also points out that because India has been able to establish a good relationship with Qatar, and that is the primary reason we have these individuals back to India. That apart, we also have India and Qatar relationship where we have larger number of Indian diaspora who are working in Qatar as well. We've also established trade relationship between India and Qatar. We also import a lot of gas and oil from Qatar as well. All this has culminated in the release of these former Indian Navy personnel back to India. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says Tamil Nadu Governor Ravi refuses to deliver customary address. Let us try and understand what is this article in greater detail. We have something called as the customary address, or the address that is made by the President of India as well as by the governors of the respective state. What are these customary addresses? When it comes to the President of India and when it comes to the governor of a respective state, what do? They address the special gathering of the legislature in the parliament when it comes to the president, and the governor when it comes to the legislative assembly. When does it take place? There are two instances that we have to remember. One, whenever a new Lok Sabha is starting off, that is, we have the elections, 5-year term of one of the political parties and the government is coming to a conclusion, and ultimately you will have is a formation of a new government and a new political party forming the government. So at the start of a new parliament or the state legislative assembly, which means the MLAs are also elected for the first time, they're getting elected. So the first session immediately after winning of the election, that political party goes on to form the government. So for the first time when they are forming the part of the government at the Lok Sabha or in the state legislative assembly, it is at that particular moment that the address is made by the president or by the governor. That apart, every year the first session in the Lok Sabha and the first session in the legislative assembly, what we will have is the addresses by the governor as well as by the president. Since this article is about the governor, let's stick to the governor. we have Article 176 of the Indian Constitution, which speaks about special address by the governor at the commencement of the first session after each general election to the Legislative Assembly, and at the commencement of the first session of each year, the governor shall address the Legislative Assembly, or in the case of a state having a legislative council, both houses assembled together and inform the legislature of the causes of its summons. So basically, what is this customary address? This customary address happens after the general elections for the first time, and immediately in the first, it is also at the first session of the each year that the governor will address the Legislative Assembly. If at all there is legislative council as well in that particular state, in that case both of them will come together and ultimately there will be an address by the governor. And as part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section which of the states in India have the legislative council. Karnataka is one state which has the legislative council. Which are the other states in India which have the legislative council is what you have to put on the comment section. Clause 2 of 176 says, provision shall be made by the rules regulating the procedure of the House or either House for allotment of time for discussion of the matters referred to in such address. So basically, this customary address is made by the President in the Lok Sabha, in the Parliament, and also by the Governor when it comes to the Legislative Assembly. That is what it is. So when does it happen? It happens immediately after the general elections and the first session of each year. Is this provision present in other countries as well? Yes, similar such provisions are also present in United States of America as well as in the United Kingdom. Similar provisions exist in other democracies. In the United States, it is referred to as State of the Union. So remember, we have a concept called a State of the Union which happens in the United States of America, which is similar to what is happening in India. So the phrase comes from an article in the US Constitution which specifies that the President from time to time gives to the Congress information of the State of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. This is with respect to United States, and then we also have it in United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, it is referred to as the Queen's Speech and as part of the ceremony to mark the formal state of the parliamentary year. But the two systems are different. How are they different? In American system, the President has the option of simply sending his written speech to Congress instead of personally going to deliver it, which means that it is compulsory under the British system as well as Indian system, where the President or the Governor will make the speech, will record the speech. But in United States of America, the text of the speech can be sent to the Congress. Congress, when we say, it's not the Indian National Congress, it is the Congress of the United States of America, which basically means the House of the Representatives and the Senate. He also puts forward the position of this administration. But in the British system, the Queen's Speech written by the government, she reads it in person from the throne in the House of the Lords. So it happens in person when it comes to British system, and the same British system is implemented in India. So the President at the central level, at the Parliament, will read it, and the Governor at the state level will read it. But in United States of America, it is not necessary that they read it, but they can still go ahead and present this speech to the Congress. That's the key major difference between United States of America as well as Britain's system. Now the first question that we have to answer in this particular customary address is, what is the content of the President's or the Governor's address? So we have the President who will be given a paper, and they can also be given a tab as well. So what do? They pick up a tab and they basically start reading about it. They'll hold it right in front of them. They will have is a piece of paper, or they can also have is a tab. So what do? The government will basically take out the script, and it is the Governor who has to read it. It is the President who has to read it. So is the address prepared by the President or the Governor themselves? No, it is not the President or the Governor who themselves prepare it, but it is the government, it is the executive which will prepare it. So it is the government which will decide, or it is the executive cabinet which will decide as to what will be the content of this particular speech. So what will they do? They basically will have the speech prepared by the government or the executive, and this will be given to the President or the Governor. So what will the Governor do? They will have this piece of paper. They will start reading from this piece of paper. What will this piece of paper or this customary address will have? This will have the achievements of the government, which basically means for the past year, what have been the achievements of the government. For example, they have taken this scheme, they have started off with this new policy initiative, they have come up with a new initiative to help the poor sections, they are making an inclusive program, they have come up with the Jan Dhan Yojana, they have programs for the women, so on and so forth. So this content will be prepared by the government, it will be prepared by the executive, which will give the past achievements of the government, and at the same time what is that the government is planning to come up with. For the past 1 year, this has been the achievement of the government. For the next subsequent years, this is the initiative that we are planning to launch, this is the program that we are planning to launch, this will be the initiative for the minorities, this will be the initiative for the poor sections of the society, this will be the initiative for the women, this will be the initiative for the children. All this will be taken up and that will be presented. So the past achievements will be discussed as part of this literature as well as this address, and we will also have is the future presidents as well, what is going to be represented, what are the initiatives that we will be bringing. So the content of the president or the governor's address will be presented by the president and the governor on the basis of the recommendation given by the cabinet and by the government. So will they prepare it on their own? No, it will not prepared by the own, but it is by the government as well as by the executive. So what happens in certain situations? For example, we have the government. The government may have given a particular piece of paper, they may ask to read it, that is the president or the governor is asked to read it. But sometimes the president, in most of the situations the president does read it, the governor does read it, but there are ample number of examples as well where the governor has declined it or they have not even given this customary address. In 1969, the governor of West Bengal, Dharamveera, skipped 2 paragraphs of the address prepared by the United Front government. The government was led by Chief Minister Ajay Mukherjee with Jyoti Basu, who was the Deputy Chief Minister. The governor's speech in state legislatures have routinely been interrupted as well. For example, in 2017, during the governor's address in the Uttar Pradesh Assembly, paper balls and planes were thrown at the Governor Ram Nayak. The staff of the assembly had to surround the speaker and swat away the paper balls using cardboard files as well. So there have been ample number of examples where these individuals who were supposed to read it because it is the recommendation of the executive have not read it, primarily because they felt that it is against the ideology of that person who is the governor. One is that. Second, some of the achievements that have been narrated by the government or the executive is not right, it is a mere exaggeration. So as a result, there have been governors who have declined it. But what is that we have to remember? We have Article 163 of the Indian Constitution, which clearly points out that the governor will have to listen to the aid and advice of the chief minister as well as the council of ministers. So it is in this particular backdrop, whatever is being made, whatever speech has been prepared by the governor as well as by the executive, the same will have to be read out. Even if it is an exaggeration, even if it is against the ideology of the person reading it, it is still the requirement and the necessity of the governor to read whatsoever has been given by the Council of Ministers. Why are we discussing about it? That is because this article currently goes on to say that the Tamil Nadu governor Ravi refuses to deliver customary address. So ideally he should have read out whatever has been given by the government, but in this particular case that was not done so, and that is the primary reason this becomes the focus point of discussion. So remember, whenever we have a speech that is being given by the government, the same will also have to be read by the governor as well as by the president at the central level. And this article further makes a reference to Tirukkural. So this can be another important parameter from your preliminary examination point of view. What is Tirukkural? It is also known as Kural. It happens to be a classic Tamil language text consisting of 1330 short couplets or kurals of 7 words each. The text is divided into 3 books with aphoristic teachings on virtue, wealth as well as love. The traditional accounts describe it as the last work of 3rd Sangam, but linguistic analysis suggests a later date of 450 to 500 CE and that it was composed after the Sangam period. Written on the ideas of ahimsa, It emphasizes non-violence and moral vegetarianism as virtues for an individual. These are some of the important parameters from the preliminary examination point of view. So this can be very important. That is, Tirukkural happens to be a Tamil language text consisting of couplets, kurals of 7 words each. Now let's look into a continuing article which is part of your editorial. So this article says the real travesty. The real travesty basically is where a governor who profoundly disagrees with the state government should not stay in office, says this article. So this article primarily goes on to speak about two important parameters. One is with respect to a political party. What does this article say? This article says that whenever a political party is elected to form the government, they would have is a manifesto. What is this manifesto? Manifesto is that particular plan that the government would have decided prior to formation of the government. So a political party will basically issue a manifesto during the time of the elections, before to the election, saying that if at all we will come to power, this will be the agenda of the political party. So we would provide 5 kgs of rice, we would provide 10 kgs of wheat, we would provide free bus service to the people in the state, we would provide free electricity, we would provide water free of cost. So these are some of the plans or the features that a political party would wish to achieve once it comes to the power. So on the basis of the manifesto, what will the political party do? It will try to convince the voters of that particular state as well as that region. And because the people believe that a manifesto has all these plans, programs and features, they may elect that political party. Once they elect that political party, the political party has all the rights to come up with a program. We may call it freebie, we may call it a welfare scheme and program. Because that political party is selected on the basis of the manifesto, this political party has every right to do whatsoever it feels is right for the people in that particular locality. If at all the people feel that the government is exaggerating or the freebie culture should be stopped, in the next elections they will also be thrown out as well. So what is happening here? There is a political party, there is a manifesto as well. On the basis of the manifesto, they have been selected and ultimately they are accountable to the people of the respective states. While a political party has reasons to say that it has won the political elections primarily because of its manifesto, it can also write a script to the governor exaggerating certain claims. Whether the governor likes it or not, he still will have to read it out. Why? Because the governor is just the representative, he is just the head of the state, but the real head of the state happens to be the chief minister along with the council of ministers. So whatever the text of this particular programs or the initiatives that have been taken by the government, if at all it is given to the governor has to read it. Why? Because Article 163 of the Indian Constitution says so. Article 163 of the Indian Constitution clearly points out that when we have the governor has to listen to the aid and advice of the chief minister, who aid and advice of the council of ministers headed by the chief minister. So when it is clearly reiterating the fact that the governor has to listen to the aid and advice of the council of ministers, he also has to read the text, the summary text, the customary text that is given to the governor. If at all the governor is not reading it, it is violating the constitutional mandate, is what is this article all about. So governments are run by the political parties, and when political parties want to exaggerate it, they have every right to do so, because it's a political platform. It is a statement made by the political party. So whenever they are making this address, they are ready with they should be in a position to put out their viewpoint, and the governor should read it, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says NDA government wins Bihar trust vote, opposition walks out. This article here is speaking about what is called as the trust vote. The trust vote is also called as the floor test. What is a floor test? A floor test is also called as a trust vote. It is held in the legislative bodies to find out whether the government that is suspected to have lost the majority still retains the confidence of the house. This is done through a vote among the members. What is this trust vote? What is this floor test? Basically, a floor test is the floor of the legislative assembly. So it is the legislative assembly where you will have is the MLAs who will be selected, and ultimately these MLAs all come together, and ultimately because they have the majority, for example, if you consider the state of Karnataka, Karnataka. What is the majority? 224 is the total number of seats in the state of Karnataka, that is the legislative assembly. What is half of it? It will be 112 plus 1, which is 113. So if at all there is a political party which has garnered about 113 seats, they would be able to form the government at the state level. Similarly, in every other state, what we have is numbers and they have to get the majority. What if there is a political party where some other political party may allege that the party which has formed the government does not have the support and the will of the people as well as the number of MLAs selected from that political party? What is the majority required? The majority that is required is 112. So basically, out of 224, let's say for the state of in the state of Bihar, what they have is 243 member assembly seats. So out of 243, what is the majority that is required? The majority is 122 plus 1. So if there are 123 people who are present and are voting for that political party represented by the leader, it means they have successfully completed the floor test. So what you will have is the confidence motion that will be immediately raised. So then there will be the chief minister who would say that he would appear before the floor of the house, that is in the legislative assembly, and he would say that I have the support of so many MLAs, I have the support of so and so MPs in the parliament. So if at all he is able to prove that he has so many MLAs backing him, it means he has successfully gone by the trust vote. So when the house is in session, it is the speaker who can call for a floor test, but when the assembly is not in session, the governor's residuary powers under Article 163 allow him to call for a floor test. And in the year 2020, the Supreme Court in Shivraj Singh Chauhan and others versus the Speaker, Madhya Pradesh Legislative Assembly and others upheld the powers of the Speaker to call for a floor test if there is a prima facie view that the government has lost its majority. So if the Speaker feels that the government has lost the majority, he can ask the Chief Minister that, dear Chief Minister, we feel that you have lost the majority, you do not have the support of the MLAs, you do not have the majority. So please come on the floor of the Legislative Assembly, ensure that you have majority of the MLAs supporting you. So what do they basically do? They ask the Chief Minister to prove the numbers. That is when the Chief Minister will appear before the floor and he will convince all the MPs as well as the MLAs. If it is the parliament, it is the MPs. If it is Legislative Assembly, it is the MLAs, that they will prove that we have the support of majority of the MLAs. The CM moves a motion seeking a vote of confidence on which MLAs who are present in the house vote. If the majority of the members vote in the favor, the government survives. If the CM loses the vote, the government has to resign. How does it work? For example, you will have is the speaker. So the speaker will start addressing the gathering saying, how many of you are in voting the favor of the chief minister? So it can be a voice vote or it can be a division of votes as well. So what is the voice vote? Voice vote basically means you will have people representing this political party, the MLA supporting the chief minister who would say, yes, 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 we support the chief minister. So it's a voice vote. So the speaker would put out the wordings, how many of you support the chief minister? So you will have people who will support him, who will say, we support him. All those people are seated on one side and they raise their hands and they put out on the voice note. They basically say, yes, we support the chief minister. That is through the voice vote. Then there will also be division of votes as well. How does the division of votes happen? It can be through the papers where you would be casting your vote in person, or it can also be via the machine as well. So basically, when we say trust vote or the floor test, it is about proving the majority where the maximum number of people vote and cast their vote in favor of the chief minister. Then we have something called as the composite floor test, which is conducted when more than one person stakes a claim to form the government, which means there are two candidates who are saying that we have the majority, we have the majority. So when two people or two chief ministerial candidates or people who would want to form the majority, if both of them come together to prove it, that is what is called as composite floor test. When the majority is not clear, the governor might call for a special session to see who has the majority. The majority is counted based on the present and voting. This can be done through a voice vote like we just discussed, where the member can respond orally or through division voting. Some legislatures may be absent or choose not to vote. In division voting, voting can be done through electronic gadgets, ballots or slips. The person who has the majority will ultimately form the government, And in case of a tie, like in the composite floor test, where there are two people who say I have the majority, it is the speaker who will cast his vote, and ultimately it can be tilted in favor of one of the persons who's going to ultimately become the chief minister. So what is a trust vote? A trust vote is nothing but the chief minister coming before the floor to prove that he has the backing and the support of the MLAs, so that they can ultimately form the government to represent the voice of the people. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Bengaluru gears up to participate in the world's biggest annual bird counting exercise. The article here is speaking about Great Backyard Bird Count. This can be very, very important from your preliminary examination point of view. So the Great Backyard Bird Count happens on an annual level. So the Great Backyard Bird Count is a community science project in ornithology. What is ornithology? It is the study of the birds, understanding the birds, their behavior, their patterns, their reproductive structure, how they move from one place to another. If you see, there are many birds which travel all the way from Serbia to India. So understanding or studying about birds is what is called as ornithology. So this Great Backyard Bird Count is conducted annually in mid-February. So when does it occur? It occurs in the month of February, and it happens to be an annual exercise. The event is supported by Cornell Lab of Ornithology and the National Audubon Society. This can be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. At the Indian level, the GBBC India is coordinated by the Bird Count India. What is this Bird Count India? This happens to be a coming together of a number of groups and organizations that are interested in birds, nature and conservation. So the GBBC India is coordinated, executed by the Bird Count India, and this Bird Count India happens to be group of people, organizations all come together to conduct this exercise. So we have the Great Backyard Bird Count, which happens annually, and this is executed, or it is the project of ornithology, which is study of science, which is study of birds, and at the same time it is supported by Cornell Lab of Ornithology and the National Audubon Society. These are very important from your preliminary examination point of view. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section what is the IUCN status of brown shirk. What is the IUCN status of brown shirk is what you have to put on the comment section. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says KSRTC BMTC win awards. KSRTC has won 2 Scotch National Awards recognizing its efforts in the areas of labour welfare initiatives and the Shakti scheme. The BMTC received the award for its efforts to improve passenger safety during the COVID-19, where there were digital transactions that were also put up by BMTC. So it is now being awarded what is called as the Scotch National Awards. The SKOCH Group India is an autonomous industry-based think tank. So the SKOCH Group happens to be a think tank that is located in Delhi. It was established in 1997. It introduced the Scotch Awards in 2003 to recognize excellence in governance, finance, technology and inclusive growth. The selection of award-winning projects by the Scotch Group is based on the benchmark performance as well as outcomes. These are very, very important from your preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article here is speaking about greyhounds. The greyhound was raised in 1989 by Indian Police Service Officer K.S. Vyas. It can be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. So what are greyhounds? We have couple of pockets which are called as the red corridors. What are these red corridors? These are where the maximum Naxalite activity takes place. In the state of Andhra Pradesh, what we had seen is that it runs a red corridor where you have lot of Naxalite movements that take place, and these Naxalite activities continue to haunt remote pockets of Telangana as well as Andhra Pradesh. So in order to prevent these Naxalites from surfacing every now and then, taking away the life of the people and causing disturbance to the democracy, you needed one particular police force that is created especially to curb out these Naxalite activity and the red corridor area. So in order to ensure that we eliminate these Naxalites, in order to ensure that Naxalite activity does not take place in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, what was created is called as the Greyhounds back in the year 1989 by Indian police officer K.S. Vyas. So what is this Greyhounds basically? This happens to be anti-Naxalite police force. These are the forces which are known for guerrilla warfare. They are the groups or the police officers who know how to fight insurgency and the Naxalite heartlands, and ultimately they are known for their guerrilla warfare and jungle warfare techniques. Directly as a consequence of founding the unit, Vyas became the top target on the Communist Party of India People's Wars hit list, and Andhra Pradesh had been a long time Maoist militant hotbed, but the presence of Greyhounds, supported by paid informers at the village level, managed to arrest or kill several top leaders as well. So the Greyhounds are the police force that are present in the state of Telangana and also in the state of Andhra Pradesh, where they are known for the anti-Naxalite movement, and at the same time they also have the practice of working in guerrilla warfare and jungle warfare, and through which they have been able to eliminate these Naxalites in the red corridors of Andhra Pradesh as well as in Telangana. What is the context? We have a commando of the Greyhounds, the anti-Naxal force of Telangana, who died after he accidentally came in contact with a live wire. It is very unfortunate. Hope his soul rests in peace. But then the Greyhounds are one of the best police team which are in order to eliminate Naxalite. It was created in 1989 by Indian police officer K.S. Vyas. It is important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article here is speaking about a global alliance to bridge the gender equity gap. The article here is speaking about one of the alliance. The alliance happens to be Alliance for Global Good, Gender Equity and Equality. This happens to be one of the initiatives that was taken under the G20. What is the objective? The primary and stated objective of this alliance is to bring together global best practices, sharing knowledge and investments in the identified areas of women's health, education and enterprise. What is this alliance? It is coming together of the global community. It is coming together of the individuals. It is coming together of the organizations. What do? There are principal issues when it comes to the women. One is about the empowerment. The second is about economic prosperity. Third is about inclusivity. Fourth is about empowerment, so on and so forth. Whenever a woman has to be empowered, she has to be in parity with the men. What she requires is some of the opportunities that are provided. And at the same time, there can be examples in one country which might have worked in that particular country. So why not import this concept, adopt this concept into a new country as well? If at all there is a well-being of the women that is taken into consideration by a specific program, they have brought in certain features, unique ideas into this entire process. Why not implement the same idea or this innovative thought in some other country as well? What if there have been schemes and measures that have been taken which has made the empowerment of the women truly inclusive? Why not implement this particular program that has been adopted in another country and that is the major idea of this alliance. So take up a thought, give the thought an energy, give the thought the power, and ultimately mushroom it, given some energy to it, and if it prosper, implement this concept in some other country as well. So taking up the ideas, making sure that this idea is also implemented in other countries in the areas of health, education and enterprise is what is this article all about. So basically, the Alliance for Global Good, Gender Equity and Equality is one such thought where countries have come together, where people have come together, organizations have come together basically to make it highly inclusive so that there is parity between the men as well as women. If at all there is a good concept of education, enterprise and health in any other sector, the same can be imported into the country so that it can be be practiced in every other country as well. So this article primarily goes on to say that the alliance is anchored by the CII Center for the Women Leadership, guided by the Minister of Women and Child Development, Government of India, and supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Will have a global network of experts, think tanks, industry, country leadership that will drive collective actions to augment women empowerment. The partnership of the World Economic Forum as a network partner of this initiative is the testament of the global relevance and the global resolve to drive growth that is inclusive and equitable. So basically this article goes on to say we have been able to take up steps in the form of parliamentary mechanism where we have made sure that 1/3 of the reservation is provided in the parliament and the state legislative assembly. So the article goes on to speak about reservation bill, and then there have been active participation in the labor force participation rate as well, from 23.3% in 2017-18 to 37% in 2020-23, and the periodic and the female enrollment in higher education has gone up by 28%. More women are opting for the STEM technology, which means science, technology, engineering, mathematics. There are self-help groups. All of these initiatives are helping for the women empowerment. So subsequently, there will be more initiatives that will be taken, and we should ensure that there are women who are in equal parity with the men. Making it highly inclusive is what is this article speaking of, and that is what this alliance is all about. So the alliance will be taking forward the commitments of the G20 leaders for the benefit of larger global community as a follow-up to the activities of the engagement group and initiatives under the G20 framework. The Business 20, Women 20 and G20 empower these sectors. So basically bringing in people to add more, bringing in people to build business conversations, bringing in people so that the women can also become part of economy, education and economic opportunities is what is this article all about. This can be very important from your preliminary as well as your mains examination point of view. This article says RuPay UPI rolled out in Mauritius, Sri Lanka. So we have the RuPay cards and unified payments interface connectivity between India and Mauritius, as well as UPI connectivity between India and Sri Lanka, which were established to deepen financial integration and to facilitate digital payments among citizens of the three countries. So basically we have the RuPay card, just like the Visa, the MasterCard, which happens to be the representation of another country. What we have is RuPay, which is the representation of India, and this happens to be now present in the countries of Mauritius as well as Sri Lanka. An Indian traveler to Mauritius will now be able to pay a merchant in Mauritius using UPI, that a person who is traveling from India to Mauritius, he would be able to pay via the UPI. Similarly, a Mauritian traveler will be able to pay a merchant in India using an instant payment settlement app of Mauritius. Further, with the adoption of RuPay technology, card scheme of Mauritius will enable banks in Mauritius to issue RuPay cards as well. Further, the digital payments connectivity with Sri Lanka will enable Indian travelers to make QR code based payments at merchant locations in Sri Lanka, and the projects had been developed and executed by NPCI International Payments Limited along with partner banks, non-banks from Mauritius and Sri Lanka under the guidance of the Reserve Bank of India. This can be very important, where they can ask you a question that India has recently entered to roll out RuPay and UPI in which of the following countries. So the answer to this would be Mauritius as well as Sri Lanka. So these are very, very important from your preliminary examination point of view. If you're liking these initiatives, please hit on the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel and also share it with your fellow aspirants as well. Thank you for watching. All the best.